Olabisi was born in the heart of the Kingdom of Oyo, where traditions reigned supreme and every family upheld strict customs. From birth, her path was set. She was to marry a man chosen by her parents. As the daughter of a respected family, her future marriage was meant to strengthen alliances and bring wealth to her family. However, Olabisi dreamed of something different. She yearned for love, not a marriage of convenience. But in Oyo, such desires were seen as foolish. Her parents, unaware of her inner turmoil, had already begun searching for a wealthy suitor. Olabisi felt trapped, knowing she would soon be forced into a marriage that had nothing to do with her heart's desires. Each day, she longed for an escape, unsure of how she would ever find a way out. As Olabisi grew older, the pressure to marry intensified. The elders of the village often reminded her parents of their duty to secure a prosperous marriage for their daughter. Wealthy families began visiting, offering rich gifts in hopes of winning Olabisi's hand. She felt suffocated by the attention and expectations, but to her family, these suitors were the embodiment of success. Please register the software. Olabisi often retreated to the quiet corners of her village to escape these discussions. She found solace in the riverside, where she would sit and dream of a different future, one where love and respect ruled, not wealth and status. Yet, she knew such dreams were near. Olabisi's silent rebellion against tradition grew stronger. She began to secretly challenge the village's customs in small ways, questioning the elders' views on marriage and subtly resisting the idea that her worth was tied to wealth. To her family, however, only confidant was her childhood friend, Adela, who also questioned the norms of the village. Together, they spoke of love and freedom, though they both knew such ideas were seen as dangerous. Olabisi's heart grew restless, and she knew that one day, she would have to make a choice between duty and evening. Olabisi's parents made the announcement she had been dreading. They had found a suitor, Collard, the son of a wealthy merchant. He was known for his riches and business acumen, but not for his kindness or love. Olabisi's heart sank as she realized her time was running out. The marriage negotiations had already begun, and soon, she would be expected to fulfill her duty. Her family was overjoyed, seeing Collard as the perfect match. But Olabisi couldn't shake the feeling of dread that washed over her. She felt as though her life was slipping away from her, and she knew that if she didn't act soon, her dreams of love would be lost forever. When Olabisi finally met Collard, her worst fears were confirmed. He was arrogant and dismissive, more interested in flaunting his wealth than in getting to know her. He spoke of his business ventures and the wealth he would bring to her family, but not once did he ask about her dreams or desires. Olabisi felt unseen, like a prize to be won rather than a partner to be. Collard's confidence in the arranged marriage was unsettling. He assumed that, like all women in Oyo, Olabisi would fall in line with the wishes of her family. But Olabisi knew that she could never be happy with him. The encounter left her more determined than ever to find a way. Olabisi's determination to resist the arranged marriage only grew stronger after meeting Collard. She began to question the village's customs more openly, though she remained careful not to anger her family. She knew that challenging the status quo would not be easy, but she felt a growing desire to fight for her independence and for the right to choose her own future. Her conversations with Adela became more urgent, as they discussed ways to break free from the rigid expectations of the village. Olabisi knew that she couldn't simply refuse the marriage. Such an act would bring shame upon her family. But she was beginning to realize that there might be another way. One day, while walking along the river, Olabisi encountered a man she had never seen before. His name was Iodeli, and he was a wealthy merchant from a neighboring village. Unlike Collard, Iodeli was kind and humble, and he took a genuine interest in Olabisi. They spoke for hours, sharing stories of their lives. Olabisi was struck by Iodeli's warmth and intelligence. For the first time, she felt as though someone truly saw her for who she was, not just as a commodity to be married off. Iodeli, too, was captivated by Olabisi's strength and spirit. Though their meeting was brief, it left a lasting impression on both of them. Please register the software. After meeting Iodeli, Olabisi's heart was filled with a new sense of hope. She had always believed that love was possible, but now she had proof. Iodeli was everything she had ever wanted: kind, understanding, and respectful of her desires. However, she knew that convincing her family to accept him would not be easy. They had already committed to Collard, and in the eyes of the village, breaking such a commitment would be Olabisi knew that she had to act carefully. She couldn't simply present Iodeli as an alternative suitor without a plan. She needed to prove that love was worth more than wealth or tradition. But how could she convince her family, and the village, to see things her way? As Olabisi continued to see Iodeli in secret, she began to form a plan. She knew that if she could show her family that Iodeli was not only wealthy but also a man of honor and integrity, they might reconsider their decision. However, she also needed to challenge the village's broader beliefs about marriage and love. Olabisi started gathering stories from other young women in the village who had been forced into arranged marriages. Many of them were unhappy, trapped in loveless unions that served only to maintain their family's wealth and status. Armed with these stories, Olabisi knew that she could make a powerful argument for change. Please register the software. Olabisi knew that she couldn't fight this battle alone. She began to seek out allies within the village, those who shared her views on love and marriage. To her surprise, many of the younger generation, both men and women, were sympathetic to her cause. They, too, dreamed of marrying for love rather than wealth, but few had been brave enough to voice their desires. Olabisi's confidence grew. She realized that she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the future of the village. Together, they began to strategize ways to challenge the village's customs without causing dishonor to their families. Parents were eager to finalize the marriage arrangement with Collard, but she knew it was time to confront them. She sat them down one evening and explained her feelings, telling them that she could not marry a man she didn't love. At first, her parents were shocked and angered by her defiance. They reminded her of her duty to the family and the importance of truth, but Olabisi stood her ground, explaining that love was more valuable than any material wealth. She spoke of the many unhappy marriages in the village and how she didn't want to become another victim of tradition. Though her parents were reluctant to accept her views, they agreed to consider her arguments. Word of Olabisi's rebellion quickly spread throughout the village, and the reactions were mixed. Some elders were outraged, seeing her actions as a direct challenge to their authority and the traditions that had governed the village for generations. However, many younger villagers were inspired by her courage and began to voice their own desires for. Olabisi knew that this was just the beginning. She would need to continue building support if she hoped to convince the entire village that love should be valued over wealth and tradition. But she was determined, knowing that her fight was not just for herself but for the future of all young Willie, aware of the pressure Olabisi was under, decided to take matters into his own hands. He approached her parents and formally asked for their permission to court Olabisi, explaining that he loved her and respected her dreams. He assured them that, despite his wealth, his intentions were honorable, and he was not seeking a union based on material gain. First, but Iodeli's sincerity impressed them. Unlike Collard, he showed a genuine interest in their daughter's happiness. Though they didn't immediately accept his proposal, they began to reconsider the idea that love could play a role in their daughter's marriage. Olabisi's fight for love was no longer a personal battle. It had grown into a movement that was spreading throughout the village. More and more young people began to speak out against the practice of arranged marriages, and even some elders began to question the long-standing traditions. The idea that love could be a valid reason for marriage was gaining traction. Olabisi knew that the village's customs wouldn't change overnight, but the seeds of transformation had been planted. With Iodeli by her side and the support of her community growing, she felt more hopeful than ever that she could not only marry for love but also change the future of the village. Not everyone was pleased with the changes happening in the village. Collard, feeling betrayed and humiliated by Olabisi's rejection, began to stir trouble. He spread rumors about Iodeli, accusing him of being an opportunist who was only interested in Olabisi's family's wealth. Collard also tried to sway the elders, arguing that the tradition of arranged marriages had kept the village strong and prosperous for generations. Olabisi and Iodeli had to confront these lies head-on. They knew that Collard's influence could sway the village back toward its old ways. Together, they worked to counter his claims, reminding the villagers of the importance of happiness and respect in marriage. As the conflict between Olabisi, Iodeli, and Collard escalated, Olabisi's resolve was tested. The village became divided, with some elders siding with Collard and others supporting Olabisi's vision for change. Her parents, caught in the middle, were unsure of which path to take. They loved their daughter but also felt the weight of tradition. The challenges, Olabisi remained strong. She knew that her fight was not just about her own happiness, but about breaking the cycle of oppression that had forced so many women into loveless marriages. She continued to rally support from the community, determined to see her vision through. Amidst the growing tension in the village, Iodeli proved to be a steadfast partner. He stood by Olabisi's side, offering her support and encouragement. Despite the pressure from Collard and the elders, Iodeli refused to back down. He knew that his love for Olabisi was worth fighting for, and he was willing to face whatever challenges came their way. Iodeli's loyalty gave Olabisi the strength she needed to keep going. Together, they formed a powerful team, united by their love and their shared vision for a future where marriage was based on mutual respect and affection, not wealth or tradition. Time had come for Olabisi to directly challenge the village elders. She requested a meeting with the council to present her case. With Iodeli by her side, she spoke passionately about the importance of love and personal choice in marriage. She reminded the elders that traditions were meant to serve the people, not the other way around. Olabisi's speech was met with mixed reactions. Some elders were moved by her words, while others remained resistant to change. However, her courage and determination left a lasting impression on everyone in the room. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and the elders began to question whether the old ways were truly the best for the future. Olabisi's fight for change caused a rift within her own family. While her parents were beginning to understand her desire for love, other relatives were not as supportive. They accused her of bringing shame to the family by rejecting Collard and defying tradition. Tensions ran high as Olabisi's family struggled to reconcile their love for the pain of her family's disapproval. Olabisi remained firm in her beliefs. She knew that she had to stay true to herself, even if it meant alienating some of the people she loved. Her relationship with Iodeli gave her the strength to endure the conflict, knowing that their love was worth the sacrifice. Though Iodeli was wealthy, he never flaunted his riches or used them to gain favor with the elders. Instead, he focused on building genuine relationships within the village. He donated to local causes, helped improve the village infrastructure, and supported the young people who were advocating for change. This approach slowly won over many of the elders, who began to see Ayodele as more than just a wealthy outsider. They recognized his character and his commitment to the well-being of the village, which made them reconsider their opposition to his courtyard. Frustrated by his failure to win over Olabisi and the village, decided to take drastic measures. He approached the village elders with an ultimatum, demanding that they enforce the marriage agreement that had been made with Olabisi's family. He argued that allowing Olabisi to choose her own husband would set a dangerous precedent and undermine the authority of the elders. The elders were divided. Some agreed with Collard, fearing the consequences of breaking tradition. Others, however, were beginning to see the value in allowing young people to make their own choices. The village was at a crossroads, and the outcome would determine the future of marriage customs in Oyo. The village elders called a council meeting to discuss Collard's demands and Olabisi's plea for change. Olabisi and Ayodele were given the opportunity to speak, as was Collard. The tension in the room was palpable as each side made their case. After hours of deliberation, the elders reached a decision. They would no longer enforce arranged marriages without the consent of both parties. The village's customs would evolve to allow for personal choice in marriage, though the tradition of parental involvement would remain respected. Olabisi's fight had paid off, and the village was ready to embrace a new future. With the elders' decision, the village of Oyo began to change. Young men and women were now free to marry for love, and the pressure of arranged marriages began to fade. Families still played a role in the process, but the ultimate decision rested with the couple. This shift brought new energy and hope to the village, as the younger generation felt empowered to build relationships based on mutual respect and affection. Olabisi became a symbol of this change, her story serving as an inspiration to others. Her courage and perseverance had transformed the village, and she was celebrated as a beloved figure who had fought for the happiness and well-being of her people. Village's customs changing, Olabisi's relationship with her family also began to heal. Her parents, though initially resistant to the idea of love-based marriages, had come to understand Olabisi's perspective. They saw that her fight was not just for herself, but for the entire village. Plea's extended family, too, began to soften. Though they had been angry with her for rejecting Collard, they couldn't deny the positive changes that were happening in the village. Slowly but surely, Olabisi's family came to see her as a hero rather than a rebel. Now that the village's customs had changed, Ayodele felt it was the right time to officially propose to Olabisi. This time, there were no obstacles standing in their way. He knelt before her in the presence of their families and asked for her hand in marriage, not as a wealthy suitor but as a man who loved her deeply. As Olabisi and Ayodele prepared for their wedding, the entire village joined in the celebration. This was not just a union between two people, but a symbol of the new era that had dawned in Oyo. The young people of the village, inspired by Olabisi's story, looked forward to a future where they could marry for love, and the elders, though still holding to certain traditions, embraced the changes. Olabisi's family, once divided, came together in support of her and Ayodele. The wedding preparations were filled with joy and excitement, as everyone anticipated the day when Olabisi would marry the man she had chosen with her heart. Plea's of Olabisi and Ayodele's wedding arrived, and the village gathered to celebrate. It was a beautiful ceremony, blending the old traditions of Oyo with the new values of love and choice. Olabisi, radiant in her wedding attire, walked down the aisle with her parents by her side, a symbol of the reconciliation that had taken place within her family. As Olabisi and Ayodele exchanged vows, the village erupted in cheers. Their love story had touched the hearts of everyone in Oyo, and their union marked the beginning of a new chapter in the village's history. After the wedding, Olabisi and Iodeli began their new life together. They continued to be active members of the village, working to support the community and advocate for the rights of young people. Olabisi, in particular, became a mentor to the young women of Oyo, encouraging them to follow their hearts and fight for their own happiness. Their marriage was a partnership built on love, trust, and mutual respect, and it became a model for others in the village. Olabisi and Iodeli's love story continued to inspire those around them, and Olabisi's legacy in the village grew. The changes she had fought for became a permanent part of Oyo's culture. Courage had changed not only her own life but the lives of countless others. Her name was spoken with reverence and admiration, and she became a beloved figure in the history of the Kingdom of Oyo. Olabisi and Iodeli lived a long and happy life together, their love serving as a beacon of hope for all who knew them. Their story was passed down through the generations, a reminder that true love is worth fighting for, and that even the deepest traditions can be transformed by the power of the heart. Watch out for the part 2 of this story about Olabisi, who trapped in a marriage arranged by her parents. Did she eventually get married? Or did she remain single forever? Welcome to African Tales. On this channel, you can watch entertaining stories that are deeply rooted in culture.